Imagine a world without Rome. A world devoid of its laws, its roads, its foundational philosophies that shaped continents. For nearly a millennium, from the humble city-state to the sprawling dominion, Rome wasn't just an empire, it was the world. It was the enduring promise of order in a chaotic age, the very definition of civilization. Its legions were an unstoppable tide, its governance a complex tapestry of innovation, its culture a vibrant crucible that melted and forged diverse peoples into something uniquely Roman. But even the most magnificent symphonies must find their final chord, and the Roman Empire, that colossus of antiquity, was no exception. Its fall, however, was not a sudden dramatic plunge into an abyss. It was a slow, agonizing descent, a protracted twilight that stretched over a century, 100 years of desperate battles, economic collapse, political betrayals, and the gradual erosion of everything that made Rome, Rome. We are taught tales of barbarians at the gates, of corrupt emperors, of moral decay. These are easy answers, convenient narratives. But the truth, as always, is far more intricate, more devastating, and perhaps more human. It's a story woven with threads of impossible geopolitical burdens, systemic economic vulnerabilities, and a profound crisis of identity that eventually brought the mighty empire to its knees. This is not just history. It is a profound cautionary tale, an echo across millennia that still resonates with chilling relevance in our own complex world. Tonight on Echo of Time, we embark on an epic journey back to that final tumultuous century of the Western Roman Empire. We will peel back the layers of myth and misdirection to uncover the true, often astonishing reasons why this titan truly fell. Prepare to witness the slow unraveling of an empire, stone by painful stone. The serpent in the treasury, Rome's economic undoing. To truly grasp Rome's decline, we must first descend into the very heart of its power, its treasury. By the late 4th century CE, the Roman economic machine, once a marvel of efficiency and wealth generation, was grinding to a halt, choked by a serpent of its own making, inflation and currency debasement. For centuries, the Roman currency, particularly the denarius and later the solidus, was the backbone of its vast trade network, respected and sought after across continents. It was backed by real silver and gold, but empires are expensive, wars were ceaseless, bureaucracy ballooned, and the ever-expanding army, Rome's primary tool for both defense and conquest, demanded an immense constant drain of resources. Maintaining legions across thousands of miles of border was a financial black hole. As the empire grew, the costs mounted, but the inflow of new wealth, primarily from conquests and new mines, began to slow. When gold and silver reserves dwindled, emperors faced a stark choice: raise taxes to unsustainable levels, or find a more creative solution. They chose the latter, a path that ultimately proved fatal. The practice was simple yet insidious: currency debasement. Emperors would reduce the amount of precious metal in their coins, replacing it with cheaper base metals like copper or lead. A silver denarius might become mostly copper, merely plated with silver to maintain its appearance. Initially, this allowed the government to mint more coins from the same amount of precious metal, seemingly solving their short-term financial woes. More money in circulation, more pay for soldiers, more funds for projects, a temporary relief. But the market is not easily fooled. Merchants and citizens quickly understood that a coin's nominal value no longer matched its intrinsic worth. If your denarius was 90% silver today but only 50% silver tomorrow, you'd demand more coins for the same goods. This led to rampant inflation, a spiraling increase in prices that destabilized the entire economy. A loaf of bread that cost 1 coin might soon cost 5, then 10. Wages, if they rose at all, could not keep pace. The effects were catastrophic. The trust in Roman currency, once inviolable, evaporated. People began hoarding what few pure gold or silver coins remained, preferring to use them for large essential purchases or burying them for safekeeping. For everyday transactions, the debased copper coins were shunned. This created a fractured economy where bartering, the direct exchange of goods and services, became increasingly common, especially in rural areas. The sophisticated monetary system that had facilitated vast trade and intricate taxation broke down. The consequences rippled through Roman society. Merchants facing volatile prices found long-distance trade too risky and unprofitable. Small farmers, once the backbone of Italy, struggled with rising costs and an inability to sell their produce for a fair price. Many were forced to abandon their lands, seeking patronage from wealthy landowners in exchange for security, a feudalistic trend that further concentrated power and wealth into the hands of a few, eroding the very middle class that sustained urban centers. The tax system, too, suffered. With currency value fluctuating wildly, central collection became a nightmare. Emperors demanded taxes in kind, grain, oil, cloth, or in increasingly rare precious metals, placing an even greater burden on a struggling populace. The grand cities, once bustling with commerce and civic life, began to depopulate, their infrastructure decaying as people moved to safer, more self-sufficient rural estates. This wasn't just a financial inconvenience, it was a systemic failure. The very arteries that carried the lifeblood of the empire, trade, taxes, and a stable economy, were hardening, slowly starving the mighty Roman heart. And as the treasury weakened, so too did Rome's ability to defend its vast vulnerable borders. As Rome's treasury faltered, its most vital organ, the military, began to strain under an impossible burden. For centuries, the Roman legions were the envy of the world, a disciplined, well-equipped force that conquered, defended, and projected Rome's immense power. But by the 4th century CE, this mighty shield was stretched thin, its resources dwindling, its morale wavering, and its very composition changing in ways that would prove fatal. Rome's empire was vast, a testament to its ambition, but also its greatest vulnerability. Thousands of miles of borders, along the Rhine, the Danube, Hadrian's Wall in Britannia, and across the deserts of North Africa, demanded constant vigilance and an enormous military presence. The cost of maintaining hundreds of thousands of soldiers, supplying them, feeding them, and building their fortifications across such a colossal expanse, was simply unsustainable for a weakening economy. This wasn't merely a drain, it was a hemorrhage. The empire, once a source of plunder and enslaved labor, no longer offered easy conquest to fuel its military machine. Instead, Rome found itself perpetually on the defensive, reacting to threats rather than initiating them. The Pax Romana had been a peace enforced by superior strength, but that strength was now eroding, replaced by desperate rearguard actions and costly campaigns that yielded little in return. Adding to this immense pressure was a demographic shift within the empire. Plagues, famines, and continuous warfare had reduced the Roman populace, making it increasingly difficult to recruit native-born Romans into the legions. Rome, ever pragmatic, began to fill its ranks with auxiliary troops from various barbarian tribes, Goths, Franks, Alemanni, who were promised land or citizenship for their service. These foederati, as they were known, became an indispensable yet increasingly problematic component of the Roman army. While often brave and effective fighters, their loyalties were complex. They fought for Rome, but often under their own tribal leaders, maintaining their distinct cultural identities. This diluted the traditional Roman military discipline and sense of shared purpose. When Rome struggled to pay them, a common occurrence given the economic woes, their loyalty could quickly turn to resentment, and then open rebellion. They understood Roman tactics, spoke Roman languages, and knew the weaknesses of the very empire they served. The quality of training and equipment also suffered. With fewer resources, the once impeccable Roman military machine became less uniform. Local commanders often had to make do with what they had, leading to variations in armor, weaponry, and training standards. The legendary Roman engineering that built siege engines and defensive works also began to decline in efficiency, unable to match the scale of the threats. Perhaps the most devastating impact of this military overstretch was the forced withdrawal of legions from one frontier to bolster another. When units were pulled from Britannia to defend Italy, Britannia became vulnerable. When troops moved from the Rhine to the Danube, new breaches appeared. It was a constant losing game of whack-a-mole that drained manpower, resources, and morale. The once unbreakable shield of Rome was not shattered by a single blow. It was worn thin by constant friction, riddled with cracks from within and stretched beyond its breaking point, leaving the heart of the empire increasingly exposed to the storm that was gathering on its borders. If the Roman economy was the serpent in its treasury and the military its stretched shield, then the very head of the empire, its political leadership, was often a shadow, caught in a dizzying merry-go-round of ambition, betrayal, and short-sightedness. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, the imperial throne, once a symbol of absolute authority and stability, had become a perilous seat, a prize for powerful generals and manipulative courtiers, rather than a bastion of decisive governance. The sheer size of the empire, as discussed, presented enormous administrative challenges. For a time, it had been informally divided, then formally split in 395 CE by Emperor Theodosius I into western and eastern halves, while the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in Constantinople, Byzantium, was strategically positioned, economically vibrant, and geographically more defensible. The Western Empire was sprawling, diverse, and crucially, facing the brunt of the barbarian migrations head-on. This division, intended to improve governance, ultimately sealed the Western Empire's fate by isolating it from the wealthier and more stable East, which increasingly had its own formidable problems to contend with. Within the Western Empire, the emperor's power became severely diluted. The tradition of military acclamation meant that generals, especially those commanding barbarian foederati, held immense sway. These powerful figures, often referred to as kingmakers, would raise their own chosen candidates to the throne, or simply depose emperors they deemed unsuitable. Between 455 and 476 CE, a mere 21 years, the Western Roman Empire saw 9 different emperors. This rapid succession, often ending in violent death or forced abdication, created an atmosphere of constant instability and prevented any long-term planning or consistent policy implementation. Imagine trying to steer a colossal ship in a hurricane when the captain changes every few months, each new one undoing the work of the last. This was the reality of the Western Roman Empire. Resources were wasted on internal power struggles rather than external defense. Generals loyal to one faction might refuse to cooperate with others, even in the face of a common enemy. The focus shifted from the welfare of the empire to the survival of the individual emperor or the ambitions of his handlers. The emperors themselves were often either weak figures, mere puppets in the hands of their generals or children. Romulus Augustulus, traditionally considered the last Western Roman emperor, was a boy, elevated to the throne by his father, a general named Orestes. His reign, lasting less than a year, perfectly symbolized the emasculation of the imperial office. The title Emperor of the West became an empty shell, devoid of real authority over the shrinking territories it nominally claimed. Moreover, the increasing reliance on barbarian generals to lead Roman armies created a paradox. Men like Stilicho, a Vandal, Aetius, of Gothic descent, and Ricimer, a Sueve Gothic general, were brilliant military commanders who often fought fiercely for Rome, but their ultimate loyalties were always suspect, and their own ethnic origins often made them targets of Roman xenophobia. Their power, while necessary for defense, further undermined the authority of the legitimate Roman emperors and contributed to the fragmentation of imperial control. This political chaos wasn't merely a backdrop, it was a driving force behind the empire's undoing. Without strong, stable, and unified leadership, effective responses to the economic and military crises became impossible. The once iron will of Rome, symbolized by its emperor, had fractured, leaving a void that would soon be filled by others. The erosion of identity, social decay and cultural shift, c. 400-476 CE. Beyond the battlefields and the imperial courts, a more insidious change was sweeping across the Western Roman Empire. A quiet erosion of its very soul, a transformation of its social fabric, and a profound crisis of identity. The question, what does it mean to be Roman, grew increasingly complex, then gradually, tragically irrelevant. For centuries, Roman citizenship was a source of immense pride, a bond that united diverse peoples under a common law, language, and culture. To be Roman meant belonging to the most powerful and civilized entity in the world, sharing in its prosperity, its values, and its sense of purpose. But by the 5th century, this once vibrant identity was fading, diluted by several powerful factors. Firstly, the economic collapse we've discussed had a devastating social impact. The once thriving Roman middle class, the backbone of urban life and civic engagement, was decimated by inflation and instability. As cities declined, so too did the public services they once provided. Aqueducts fell into disrepair, public baths closed and forums lay neglected. The grand shared spaces that fostered Roman civic identity slowly crumbled, replaced by a more localized insular existence. Wealth became increasingly concentrated in the hands of a few powerful aristocrats who retreated to their vast, self-sufficient rural estates, latifundia. These estates became miniature empires with their own workforces, defenses, and even legal systems, often operating independently of central Roman authority. Peasants, desperate for security in a chaotic world, bound themselves to these landowners in exchange for protection, foreshadowing the feudal system of the Middle Ages. This localized patronage replaced loyalty to the distant, ineffective imperial government. Secondly, the influx of barbarian peoples, while sometimes necessary for military strength, profoundly altered Roman society. As foederati settled within Roman borders, they brought their own customs, languages, and legal traditions. While some assimilated, many retained their distinct identities, creating a patchwork of cultures rather than a unified Roman whole. The traditional distinction between Roman and barbarian blurred, and for many, being a Goth, a Frank, or a Vandal became more immediately relevant than being a Roman citizen, particularly when Roman authority offered little protection or prosperity. The very concept of the Roman way of life, the Romanitas, began to lose its appeal. Why embrace Roman culture when Rome itself seemed incapable of defending its own people, feeding its cities, or maintaining justice? In many areas, barbarian warlords provided more immediate security and a clearer form of local governance than the distant, struggling imperial bureaucracy. Even Christianity, which had become the official religion of the Roman Empire, paradoxically contributed to this cultural shift. While it offered a new unifying spiritual identity, its focus was on the heavenly city, not the earthly one. Loyalty to God often superseded loyalty to emperor or empire, especially when the empire was perceived as failing its people. The church in many ways became a more effective, stable, and trusted institution than the crumbling secular government, often stepping in to provide social services and leadership where the state could not. This erosion of a shared Roman identity was a slow poison. Without a strong sense of common purpose, without a belief in the inherent superiority and enduring strength of Roman civilization, the will to sacrifice, to fight, and to truly belong to the empire began to wane. When the final blows came, many in the West no longer felt a profound unifying allegiance to Rome, but rather to their local communities, their lords, or their tribal leaders. The empire had lost not just its resources, but its very reason for existing in the hearts and minds of its people. The converging storm, internal decay meets external cataclysm, c. 410-455 CE. By the early 5th century CE, the independent crises plaguing Rome, the economic ruin, the military overstretch, the political instability, and the erosion of identity, began to converge into a terrifying, unstoppable storm. It was no longer a matter of tackling one problem at a time. Rome was being assaulted from every direction, both from within its crumbling borders and by waves of relentless external pressure. The empire was caught in a death spiral, where each weakness exacerbated the others. The sack of Rome in 410 CE by Alaric's Visigoths was a psychological earthquake that sent shockwaves across the entire Roman world. It was the first time in nearly 800 years that the Eternal City had fallen to an enemy. While Rome was no longer the political heart, its symbolic importance was immense. This event shattered the myth of Roman invincibility and demonstrated that the empire could no longer even protect its spiritual core. It emboldened other barbarian tribes, signaling that the gates were truly open. Following the Visigothic sack, the Vandals and other Germanic tribes seized Roman North Africa in the 430s. This was a catastrophic blow. North Africa was the breadbasket of the Western Empire, providing vast quantities of grain that fed the city of Rome and its armies. With this vital resource cut off, Rome's food supply became precarious, its economy further crippled, and its ability to sustain large populations, especially its military, severely hampered. The Vandals, now masters of a Roman province, even developed a formidable navy, turning the Mediterranean, once Rome's lake, into a perilous waterway. Simultaneously, the Huns, under their terrifying leader Attila, were sweeping across Europe. While often depicted as mindless destroyers, Attila was a cunning strategist who played the fragmented Roman and barbarian powers against each other. His campaigns, though eventually halted at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451 CE, a desperate multi-ethnic effort led by the Roman general Aetius, drained immense Roman resources and manpower. Even after Attila's death, the Huns had inflicted irreparable damage, displacing populations and further destabilizing vast swathes of Roman territory. The problem for Rome was that it had no central reserve to draw upon. Every military victory, every successful defense came at an astronomical cost in men and money. The empire was constantly reacting, never truly recovering. If legions were needed in Gaul, Italy was left vulnerable. If the fleet sailed to defend Sicily, Hispania was exposed. The defensive strategy was essentially a series of desperate gambits, each designed to plug one hole while others inevitably opened. This continuous warfare, fought on multiple fronts against multiple enemies, devoured the empire's remaining wealth. The already debased currency became even more worthless. The already stressed agricultural system couldn't cope with the constant disruptions. More Roman citizens fled their lands, seeking protection from local strongmen or barbarian warlords, further eroding the tax base and imperial authority. The Western Roman emperors, often weak and short-lived, found themselves trapped in a vicious cycle. They needed money to raise armies, but the economy was collapsing. They needed armies to defend the borders, but the constant warfare was bleeding the populace dry and leading to reliance on unreliable barbarian mercenaries. They needed stable governance, but political intrigue and assassination were rampant. By 455 CE, when the Vandals sacked Rome a second time, a more thorough and brutal affair than Alaric's sack, the symbolic heart of the empire was not just breached, it was plundered and humiliated beyond recognition. This convergence of overwhelming external pressure with deep-seated internal rot created a perfect storm, leaving the Western Roman Empire utterly exhausted, fractured, and teetering on the brink of complete collapse. The only question now was not if it would fall, but when and who would finally deliver the last decisive blow. The Warlords' Feast, Fragmentation and the Rise of Barbarian Kingdoms, c. 455-475 CE. After the twin humiliations of Alaric's sack in 410 and the Vandal sack in 455, the Western Roman Empire was no longer a unified entity. It was a ghost, a collection of fragmented territories nominally under Roman rule, but truly carved up and dominated by independent barbarian warlords. The imperial authority, once absolute, now barely extended beyond the borders of Italy itself, and even there, it was a precarious and constantly challenged claim. The very provinces that had once supplied Rome with immense wealth and manpower had become its tormentors. Roman Gaul was largely controlled by the Visigoths, Franks, and Burgundians. Hispania was divided between the Visigoths and Suebi. North Africa, the empire's granary, was firmly in Vandal hands, their formidable navy now controlling the vital trade routes of the Western Mediterranean. Britannia had long been abandoned by Roman legions in the early 5th century, leaving its Romano-British populace to fend for themselves against invading Anglo-Saxons. What remained of the Western Roman Emperor's domain was a shrinking heartland in Italy, and even this was subject to constant incursions and the growing power of barbarian generals within its own ranks. The emperors themselves, often referred to as shadow emperors, became mere puppets. The true power brokers were men like Ricimer, a Suebic Gothic general who, for nearly 2 decades, 456 to 472 CE, acted as the actual ruler of Italy, making and unmaking emperors at will. He chose weak, malleable figures for the throne, ensuring his own military and political dominance. This period was characterized by a bizarre dance of power. Barbarian kings, while effectively independent rulers of former Roman provinces, would often nominally acknowledge the authority of the Western Roman Emperor, or more practically, the Eastern Roman Emperor in Constantinople. This was a strategic move. It gave their rule a veneer of legitimacy in the eyes of the remaining Roman population and avoided direct confrontation with the wealthier Eastern Empire. But in reality, they governed their territories as sovereign entities, minting their own coins, establishing their own laws, and waging their own wars. The Roman military, once the bulwark of the empire, was now almost indistinguishable from the very barbarian forces it was meant to fight. Many Roman generals were of barbarian descent, and their armies were largely composed of foederati. The traditional Roman legionary, The disciplined citizen soldier was largely a thing of the past. The distinctions between Roman and barbarian were not just blurring, they were rapidly disappearing, leaving a cultural and administrative vacuum. Cities, once vibrant centers of Roman life, continued to decline. Trade routes were disrupted by constant warfare and pirate activity. Roads, once meticulously maintained by Roman engineers, fell into disrepair. Literacy rates plummeted, and the sophisticated legal and administrative systems of Rome became increasingly difficult to maintain. The very infrastructure of empire was crumbling, leaving a fragmented landscape of isolated towns and fortified estates. The Western Roman Empire, in its final decades, was therefore not a single cohesive entity struggling against external foes. It was a dying organism, consumed by internal decay, its limbs severed, its vital organs failing, and its heart feebly beating in a small corner of Italy, controlled by warlords who saw its title as merely a convenient tool for their own power. The stage was set for the final, almost anticlimactic act of its long and painful demise. The final whimper, the last emperor and the unceremonious end, c. 475-476 CE. After a century of agonizing decline, economic ruin, military defeat, and political chaos, the final act of the Western Roman Empire was not a thunderous collapse, but a quiet, almost dismissive whimper. The year was 476 CE, and the stage was set for an event that, at the time, few Romans understood as the end of an era, but which historians would forever mark as the official demise of the greatest empire the West had ever known. The last flicker of imperial authority came in the form of a young, almost forgettable figure, Romulus Augustulus. His name ironically invoked the legendary founder of Rome, Romulus, and its first emperor, Augustus. Yet this boy emperor was nothing more than a puppet, elevated to the throne in 475 CE by his father Orestes, a powerful Roman general of Pannonian descent. Orestes, tired of being controlled by barbarian overlords, had deposed the previous emperor, Julius Nepos, and installed his son, hoping to retain some semblance of Roman control in Italy. But Orestes, like so many Roman generals before him, faced an insurmountable problem: paying his troops. His army, largely composed of foederati, barbarian mercenaries who had fought for Rome for decades, demanded land in Italy in return for their service. Orestes, keen to protect Roman lands, refused. This refusal proved to be his fatal mistake. The foederati, now feeling betrayed, rebelled. They chose a charismatic and capable Germanic chieftain named Odoacer as their leader. Odoacer was a man of Syrian descent whose family had served Rome for generations. He was a product of the very system Rome had created, a barbarian warrior who understood Roman politics and military organization intimately. In August 476 CE, Odoacer's forces decisively defeated Orestes, who was captured and executed. With Orestes gone, the young emperor Romulus Augustulus was left utterly exposed. On September 4, 476 CE, Odoacer marched into Ravenna, the last capital of the Western Roman Empire. He found the boy emperor. What followed was not a brutal execution, but an act of surprising mercy tinged with profound symbolism. Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustulus but spared his life, even granting him a pension and allowing him to retire to a villa in Campania. It was a remarkably humane end for an emperor in an age of violence. But Odoacer did something far more significant than merely deposing a puppet emperor. He chose not to appoint a new one.
He didn't declare himself Emperor of the West.
Instead, he sent the imperial regalia, the crown, the purple robes, the symbols of Western Roman authority, to the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno in Constantinople. His message was clear. There was no longer a need for a separate Western emperor. He, Odoacer, would rule Italy as a rex, a king, acknowledging Zeno as the sole distant emperor of the unified Roman world. And just like that, without a formal declaration, without a final decisive battle that brought it all crashing down, the Western Roman Empire ceased to exist. It was an unceremonious end to an age-old titan, a quiet sigh rather than a defiant roar. The fall of Rome wasn't an event. It was the formal recognition of a reality that had already been unfolding for a century. The imperial system in the West had become unsustainable, and the barbarian warlords had fully asserted their dominance. The Eternal City and its surrounding territories now lay under a new kind of rule, ushering in a dramatically different era. Aftershocks and new beginnings, The immediate aftermath and Dark Ages overture, c. 476-550 CE. The deposition of Romulus Augustulus in 476 CE didn't trigger immediate alarm bells across the Western world. For many, life simply continued. After all, barbarian kings had been ruling de facto in former Roman territories for decades. Odoacer's rule in Italy initially brought a degree of stability after years of turmoil. He governed with a mix of Roman administrative structures and Germanic military prowess, even issuing coins in the name of the Eastern Emperor Zeno, maintaining a semblance of continuity. However, beneath this surface calm, profound changes were rapidly reshaping the landscape of Europe. The formal end of the Western Roman Empire didn't mean the immediate disappearance of Roman culture or people. Instead, it accelerated a process of Roman-Germanic synthesis, where Roman traditions, laws, and languages began to merge with the customs of the new barbarian rulers. This fusion would lay the foundations for the distinct cultures and nations of medieval Europe. The most noticeable immediate impact was the continued de-urbanization of the West. Cities deprived of the central imperial government's support, their trade routes disrupted, and their tax bases vanished, continued to shrink drastically. Many became mere shadows of their former selves, their grand public buildings falling into ruin. Former citizens flocked to the countryside, seeking safety and sustenance on the self-sufficient estates of wealthy landowners, whether Roman or barbarian. Power, both political and economic, became increasingly localized. The vast centralized bureaucracy of Rome was replaced by a fragmented system of regional kingdoms. These new barbarian kings, Ostrogoths in Italy, Visigoths in Spain, Franks in Gaul, Vandals in North Africa, ruled their territories with varying degrees of success and sophistication. Some, like Theodoric the Great of the Ostrogoths in Italy, r. 493-526 CE, admired Roman culture and attempted to preserve Roman administration, even employing Roman officials. Others, like the Vandals, were more hostile to Roman elites and institutions. The shift was perhaps most profoundly felt in law and governance. While some kings, like Theodoric, sought to maintain Roman law for Roman citizens, they also introduced their own Germanic legal codes for their own people. This created a dual legal system in many areas. The universal Roman citizenship that once offered a common identity faded, replaced by loyalties based on tribal affiliation or local lordship. Crucially, the Church emerged as the primary unifying institution in the West. As secular Roman authority crumbled, the Church, with its hierarchical structure, vast landholdings, and moral authority, stepped in to fill the void. Bishops often became the de facto civic leaders in their communities, providing social services, mediating disputes, and preserving literacy and learning where the state could no longer. The Christian faith became a new, powerful cultural glue that transcended ethnic divisions between Romans and Germans. Education, once a cornerstone of Roman society, suffered a severe decline. With fewer resources, disrupted trade, and a focus on immediate survival, the pursuit of classical learning became largely confined to monasteries. The vast libraries and intellectual centers of the Roman world slowly faded, marking the beginning of what would later be termed the Dark Ages, a period not necessarily of ignorance, but of profound transformation and decentralized learning. The immediate aftermath of Rome's fall was therefore a period of immense change, a crucible where the old Roman world met the new Germanic reality. It was a time of disruption and hardship for many, but also a fertile ground for new political entities, new social structures, and new cultural identities that would eventually define medieval Europe. The echo of Rome's collapse was not silence, but the tumultuous beginning of a different, utterly transformed world. The legacy of collapse, Rome's enduring ghost, and the birth of Europe, c. 550 CE onwards. The Western Roman Empire may have formally ended in 476 CE, but its death was more akin to a metamorphosis. The empire's physical and administrative structures crumbled, but its profound influence, its laws, language, architecture, religion, and political concepts did not vanish. Instead, they became the fertile soil from which a new civilization, medieval Europe, would eventually emerge. Rome, though fallen, cast an immense enduring ghost over the centuries that followed. One of the most profound legacies was Roman law. Even as barbarian kingdoms established their own legal codes, the principles of Roman jurisprudence, concepts like property rights, contracts, and the idea of justice for all citizens, at least theoretically, continued to influence legal thought. Later, with the rediscovery of Justinian's code in the 11th century, Roman law would experience a powerful revival, forming the bedrock of legal systems across continental Europe and indirectly influencing common law traditions. Latin, the language of Rome, also refused to die. While it evolved into various local vernaculars, Vulgar Latin giving birth to the Romance languages like Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian, it remained the lingua franca of education, diplomacy, and the church throughout the Middle Ages. Scholars, priests, and kings communicated in Latin, linking disparate parts of Europe back to its Roman roots. Its vocabulary and grammatical structures are still deeply embedded in English and other Germanic languages, a constant echo in our everyday speech. Christianity, ironically, became perhaps Rome's most enduring and influential legacy. What began as a persecuted sect within the empire eventually became its official religion and, crucially, survived its fall. The Roman Church, with its hierarchical structure modeled on the Roman administration, provided continuity and spiritual unity in a fragmented world. The Pope in Rome, once a bishop in the imperial capital, became a powerful figure, claiming spiritual authority over kings and commoners alike, creating a new pan-European identity that transcended the political fragmentation. Infrastructure and urban planning, though in decay, also left their indelible mark. Roman roads, even if poorly maintained, continued to be vital arteries of travel and trade for centuries. Roman bridges, aqueducts, and city walls in various states of ruin stood as testaments to a lost age of grandeur, inspiring future generations. The very layout of many European cities today still bears the imprint of their Roman origins. Politically, the idea of Rome never truly died. Successive rulers, from Charlemagne to the Holy Roman Emperors, actively sought to revive or emulate the Roman Empire, seeing themselves as its rightful heirs. This desire for a universal empire, for a unified Christian Europe under a single powerful authority, persisted for centuries, shaping the political landscape and conflicts of the continent. Even the United States, in its founding, drew heavily on Roman Republican ideals for its governmental structure, architecture, and civic virtues. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire was not an end, but a violent, transformative beginning. It marked the end of antiquity and ushered in the Middle Ages. It forced a re-evaluation of political authority, the role of the individual, and the future of civilization. Yet through this long, dark passage, the core elements of Roman civilization persevered, adapted, and were reborn in new forms, proving that even in destruction, there can be a powerful, lasting legacy. The fall of Rome, therefore, is not just a study in decline, it's a testament to the enduring power of ideas, institutions, and culture. It taught us that no empire is truly eternal, but that the seeds of great civilizations once planted can withstand the storm and eventually sprout anew in unexpected ways. Echoes of warning, Rome's enduring lessons for the modern world. As our journey through the final century of the Western Roman Empire concludes, we are left not just with a historical narrative, but with a profound and unsettling question. What can Rome's fall teach us today? The demise of such a colossal, seemingly invincible power is not merely a tale from antiquity. It is a timeless, cautionary saga, an enduring echo that resonates with startling clarity in our own complex, interconnected world. Rome did not fall to a single sudden catastrophe. It was a slow, agonizing process, a century-long disintegration caused by a confluence of interwoven factors: economic overstretch and debasement, an unsustainable military budget, coupled with the systemic erosion of its currency, crippled Rome's ability to maintain its basic functions and defend itself. Can modern economies, burdened by immense debts and monetary policies, learn from Rome's inflationary spirals? Military overextension and identity crisis. A vast empire, stretched beyond its demographic and financial capacity, relied increasingly on foreign mercenaries whose loyalties were divided. Does this offer a warning about the limits of global power projection and the integrity of national defense in an increasingly diverse world? Political instability and fractured leadership. A constant churn of weak, short-lived emperors and powerful, self-serving warlords prevented any consistent long-term solutions to existential threats. Does this underscore the vital importance of stable, visionary leadership and national unity in times of crisis? Social erosion and loss of shared identity, the decline of cities, the rise of localized power centers, and the blurring of cultural lines weakened the very fabric of Romanitas. Can societies today, facing increasing globalization, internal divisions, and the fragmenting effects of digital tribalism, find parallels in Rome's struggle to maintain a common purpose? The brilliance of Rome was not just in its conquests or its architecture, it was in its ability to adapt, to innovate, and to integrate diverse peoples into a cohesive whole. Its eventual failure was a failure to adapt to fundamentally changing circumstances, a shift from expansion to defense, from a unified identity to fragmented loyalties, and from a stable economy to one ravaged by inflation and debt. The story of Rome's last century is a stark reminder that even the most formidable powers are ultimately fragile. They are built by human endeavor, sustained by human ingenuity, and vulnerable to human weaknesses and failures. The barbarians at the gates were often a symptom, not the sole cause of a deep-seated internal sickness. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, with its own economic uncertainties, geopolitical tensions, rapid technological changes, and evolving social identities, the echoes from ancient Rome serve as a powerful call to introspection. They challenge us to understand the delicate balance between power and prosperity, to recognize the insidious nature of internal decay, and to prioritize long-term resilience over short-term expediency. The Western Roman Empire may have fallen, but its legacy and the profound lessons of its demise continue to shape our world, offering invaluable insights into the cycles of history, the challenges of governance, and the enduring human struggle to build something lasting. The echoes of Rome do not just tell us how an empire died, they whisper to us about how civilizations endure, or why they might not. Which aspect of Rome's fall do you find most relevant to our world today? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below, and if you've been captivated by this journey through time, remember to subscribe to History's Echo for more deep dives into the stories that shaped humanity. The past has much to teach us if only we listen to its echoes.